Welcome, everyone, to Granting Success, How to Craft Compelling Funding Applications. I'm here today with our amazing panel. Charlotte, would you mind introducing yourself?
Thank you, Daria. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Noom Charlotte. I'm from Cameroon. I currently work with the Association of Adolescent Girls and Young Women. I actually lead the girl wing of this association. And concurrently, I am a research fellow with eBase, working in the intersection of research, evidence, and policy. Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to having an amazing session with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Marco, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, thank you so much, Daria. So yes, I'm Marco, a medical anthropologist and also a double master's degree candidate in public health and a researcher in global health equity. I am a Youth Hub Seed grantee with Brescia Checkpoint, where we created a digital youth academy in the Italian context. And I'm very excited to be here today to share a bit more about my experience, talking about funding opportunities, especially in this time that we live right now. So thank you, Daria, for having us.
Thank you, Marco. And Sarah, can you also introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Joyce, and I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm a senior at Boston University studying health science. And I'm currently interning at the IAS with Daria with the Youth Hub. And I'm excited to be here to help facilitate.
Thank you, Sarah. And my name is Daria Besting. I manage the programmatic youth work at the International AIDS Society, which also the Youth Hub Seed Grant program falls into. So yeah, let's see what we're going to discuss today. So first, we'll have a little bit more of a general overview of how to prepare and how to craft grant applications that really show the impact that you want to achieve. Then we go into more the specifics of what you can expect from the Youth Hub Seed Grant application. And then we will talk about the selection criteria and how you really ensure that you shine in your application. And we'll also have some examples for all of that. And you will be able to access these slides later on. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A with our panel. You can already put some questions in the Q&A box, so they're ready to go when we jump into our Q&A. But please note, put them in the Q&A box and not in the chat, because that will be where we're looking at. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Charlotte.
Thank you, Daria. Hello, everyone. So as Daria mentioned, I'll be walking us through how to prepare for a grant application. And we are going to begin with general tips before we head on to the Youth Hub Seed Grant application proper. So one of the key things we have to keep in mind when we want to apply for grants is the fact that grant applications are highly competitive, right? Especially now with the restrictions or the constraints, especially within the HIV response space. So it's very important that you start to prepare in advance so that you have enough time to get all required documents. You equally have ample time to perhaps share your application with colleagues, with mentors, with supervisors who can give you tips on how you can fine-tune your application. And also, you need to take into account technical difficulties that might come along the way. So it's important that once you have everything in place, you begin in advance. If you come across any technical challenges, you can always reach out to the donor organization to flag any technical challenges that you might have, and they equally have enough time to rectify whatever challenge you might be having. So you are within time and you put in your application. Another key thing is you need to study the eligibility criteria of your application, like that's the guidelines, thoroughly, because it's going to be a disservice to you and a disservice to the donor organization if you don't meet the eligibility. So they can say, for example, they need young people, an application comes on, they need young people working in HIV response in MENA. And then that's Middle East and North Africa, and then you're in Sub-Saharan Africa. That already disqualifies you geographically, right? They can say they need young people within the ages of perhaps 15 to 25. You are above 25. That equally disqualifies you based on your age. So it's very important that you go through what is needed by the donor entity to ensure that you don't waste your time, and equally ensure that your application is tailored to what exactly the need. One other key thing is to obtain a specific and strong support letter or recommendation letter. A lot of entities that give grants to young people or young organizations, they always have this need to have some sort of recommendation of your good standing or some sort of reference to speak to your capacity and your competence and things like that. So it's always important that if you have to reach out to perhaps a mentor, or maybe you're volunteering with an organization, and then you have to reach out to this host organization to support you, as is the case with the Youth Hub Seed grants. It's very important that you ensure that whatever letter they are giving to you is very specific, it's very concise, it equally meets the checklist or guide which has been issued by the donor organization, so that it is clear and straight to the point. So another key thing we'll be looking at is how then do you craft an impactful application? So as I discussed in my previous slide, each call for application has specificities, right? They have focus areas, they have things that they are looking at, and they always make it a point of effort to discuss this. You always make a point of effort to give out these guidelines in their call. So it is important that you familiarize yourself to the format well in advance, and equally ensure that your application is tailored specifically to the requirements in terms of area of intervention, in terms of the kind of let me say the kind of project they are looking at, in terms of maybe sustainability, in terms of innovation and things like that. So you need to look at it thoroughly, you need to study it and ensure that your application suits what you are looking for, because grant applications, they're not like a one size fits all, right? Each donor has what they are looking for, and it's important that you study that thoroughly and equally tailor your application in that light. Another thing you need to look at seriously too is to demonstrate the desired impact of your project, right? Or what you aim to do, your intervention, what exactly do you want to see at the end of the day? And you need to present it very clearly, right? You need to articulate it in the way that is convincing to the donor or whoever is going to be reviewing your application. And it should be in such a way that it is realistic, because sometimes, and I think I'm equally guilty of this, we tend to overpromise, right? And we tend to give really unrealistic goals in terms of what we want to achieve within the context of our project. Perhaps because we think with this, it can give us a better chance of achieving. Sometimes it's just because we are overzealous. Sometimes we are just very passionate. And all of this makes us to sometimes set goals or say things in our applications that we might not be able to achieve at the end of the day. So it's very important to demonstrate your impact, but keeping in mind that it should be realistic, it should be achievable, and it should be measurable within the timeline of the project implementation. And equally, one other thing I want to say on here is equally always think about, you have a project timeline of perhaps 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Equally think beyond the funding phase, right? After this funding is done, what impact will this project still have in the community, like, beyond this funding period? So whenever you're crafting your idea, whenever you're crafting your intervention, your project, always think in that direction too. One other key thing to look at when you're crafting an impactful application is you need to look at how is your application different than other projects in the field, right? There are always hundreds of people, even thousands of people that are seeking out opportunities. So what is the value added that you're bringing in? What's the X factor? What makes your application stand out? What are the new activities, right? Like, are you translating your interventions to a different target audience? Are you addressing challenges in an innovative way? Are you perhaps you're doing it in a geographical location where such has not been done before? But it's always important, whatever the case might be, it's always very important to keep in mind that as you are doing this application, there are 100 other young people who are as good, as competent, and as invested as you, who are equally filling out this application to submit. So it's very important that you have at the back of your head, what are you doing differently, right? What are you putting in your application that is going to make you get selected? And also, there's that proliferation of AI, ChatGPT. We tend to use that a lot, but it's always advisable not to use that for your grant applications, especially, and some applications actually tell you do not use AI generated responses. So it's always good that you, like I always say, you're the master of your community. You're the master of your context, right? You understand the challenges, the needs, the priorities better than anyone else. You might not necessarily have the skills or the competencies, but you have an in-depth and innate understanding that an outsider or somebody externally will not necessarily understand. So speak from your heart, be authentic, and tell your story. So this, no matter how, because sometimes we equally, maybe my English is not too good, the way I presented this, it doesn't make so much sense, it doesn't flow. But a lot of donors don't really look into that. So long as the application feels authentic, so long as it looks, innovative, there's something there, that's the most important. So the use of AI is very much discouraged when you're doing your applications. One other key thing is you need to be very clear, you need to be specific, you need to be realistic. I think I've spoken about this in the previous point I was discussing. So yeah, ensure that once you've written your application, I think this goes back to the point of starting in advance, so that you have ample time to actually review the application. You have time to proofread, you have time to share with friends, with peers, people around you. It doesn't hurt when a fresh pair of eyes sees your application, right? So it's very important for you to ensure that what you're trying to communicate is clear, is specific, is direct, is straight to the point. And always equally imagine yourself as a reviewer. I think within the context of the Youth Hub Seed grants, some of us have applied to be reviewers, right? So imagine yourself, if you're going to be applying for this, imagine yourself as a reviewer, reviewing your own application. What exactly do you want to see in the application that will make you say, like, this is good, this is impressive, this is, so with that, putting yourself in the shoes of a reviewer can actually enable you to take a step back, actually look at your application from an external lens and see what needs to be enhanced or fine-tuned, and look at loopholes and just better your application. Now, let's go to the IS application, the Youth Hub Seed Grant application form. So let's quickly look at the components of this application. You are going to be required to submit two motivational letters, or you're going to be required to answer two motivational questions, sorry. You're equally going to have to talk about your experience, and equally you're going to have to talk about you're going to answer project proposal-based questions. You're going to have to submit a letter of support from your host organization, and you're going to have to complete a budget template. So the motivational questions which you're going to have to answer just helps us understand why you want to be an IS young leader, how you envision making a positive impact for young people in HIV response. If you are doing that already, great. Perhaps you give us more insights on what you hope to do more. And equally, you will have to answer two CV questions. As I said, this is more around your experiences, your skills, around the HIV response niche. Also, you'll be asked to to respond to 6 project proposal questions, and these are just designed to provide us with project details, typically found in a project plan. We'll get into that more detailedly subsequently. And you're equally going to be asked to upload a letter of recommendation from the host organization. So the assumption is that you're working with an organization, perhaps you're a volunteer, perhaps you have a role. Yeah, it's important that you have a letter, some sort of reference, recommendation or endorsement of your competence, your commitment, your capacity as somebody who can carry out this project. And equally, the letter will have to demonstrate, beyond just endorsing you, the letter will have to demonstrate the intentionality of the host organization to support you throughout the implementation phase of your project, because it's not easy to do the application alone. Like in my case, I as I said in my introduction, I work with the Association of Adolescent Girls and Young Women. I actually lead the girl wing. So we have like a girl wing, which I lead of the association, and I had a lot of support, and my project is still actually ongoing in the last phases of it. And I've had it, you cannot do it alone. You actually cannot do it alone. So I have a lot of support from my teammates, from my colleagues, and yeah, and equally, it just the overall, the organization has been so much support. It has taken it like a project of the organization, and it's much more easier. And I think we are having much better results if I was doing it solo. So yeah, it's very important that the organization demonstrates commitment and intentionality to support you. That's the reason for the letter of recommendation. And lastly, you have to upload a completed budget template with expenses listed in USD. So all of this is provided for those who have gone through the application form already. There's actually a budget template, specified budget template, which you have to fill. And yes, just to equally flag that no other submissions, no other alternative budget templates will be accepted. So it's very important that you stick to the specified and recommended budget template provided by the Youth Hub. And yeah, equally, each of these questions you have to answer will have and the letters and everything, each will have a clear word limit. It's all indicated in the application form. So now, what is the selection criteria? So your application will be based on 5 selection criteria. So we have the project plan, like the project sustainability. We have the strength of youth engagement, leadership qualities, capacity of the host organization. So what do you want to do? What exactly is your project about? How innovative is the project? What are the objectives of the project? What are the expected impacts or maybe outcomes and then impacts of the project? How sustainable will the project be? Maybe even beyond the funding cycle, like what exactly would that look like when the funding is done? Yeah, and also your own capacities, your own capabilities as a young person to drive the implementation of the project successfully. What are your leadership qualities, your experiences, and yeah, like I've equally just discussed, the capacity of your host organization to support you. And let me just hit on this too. This is very important because beyond just maybe financial support, we realize that within the implementation of your project, you need, like for me, I leverage a lot on because my project's around storytelling, that is using the stories of young people who are living with HIV and who are currently affected by the ongoing Anglophone crisis, to raise awareness, on one hand, to raise awareness around HIV, to kind of reduce stigma and things like that. On the other hand, to advocate with local stakeholders to shed light on the challenges that these young people, the structural and systematic challenges that these young people are facing. So I had to leverage a lot on the connections that I don't have, personally. So I had to leverage a lot on the organization's work, on the organization's connections, and these are things that really facilitated a lot of things for me within the implementation of my project. So yeah, the capacity of your host organization to support you in this way is very important, and that's why that letter of recommendation is needed. So yeah, so it's important, as I've just emphasized, it's very important for you to familiarize yourself with the selection criteria and to ensure that you have some sort of a checklist and you're checking the boxes. Yeah, so once you have finished your application, you need to equally review, ask yourself questions, share with friends, with peers. I think I took about three weeks to do my own application. I kept going over it. I shared with a couple of friends who have, which I consider to have done so much more work around the HIV response. So it was very helpful. It was very helpful. So yeah, take your time, ensure that you review your application over and over, you proofread, dot your I's and T's. And yeah, so, and always remember that once you're done, always put yourself in the shoes of the reviewer, right? Because what might be obvious to you may not be very clear for somebody looking at it from an outside perspective. So thank you for listening, and I'm going to be passing the mic over to Marco to come in with some concrete examples. Marco, over to you.
Thank you so much, Charlotte, for those very helpful tips that helped us also previously in getting this funding, but also additional ones for other projects. So first of all, we'll go now through the leadership quality questions, specifically looking at the questions for the Youth Hub Seed Grants program. Here you can see 4 main questions. So so they're about the motivation to become an IAS young leader, how will you use your skills to through the Youth Hub Seed Grant program in your future work, describing a bit more about your background in the HIV response, and also naming regional, local, and national, international networks you're part of. So remember, overall, the Youth Hub Seed Grant program is not only about the project, but also about you as a young leader, as a youth leader. Reviewers are often interested in you as a person and want to know more about your skills and background. So try to show us your leadership qualities. Try to use the word limit wisely. So highlight the wins specifically in the HIV response, not everything, because simply there's not enough words for each answer. And try to make it personal and relatable from the beginning to keep the reviewers engaged. Next slide. So when it comes to the criteria, the previous slide, yes. So try to emphasize why being an IAS young leader matters to you personally. Also showing concrete examples. For example, the mentorship, the maybe funding an organization, leading some projects in your community, mobilizing the youth, or engaging in any student advocacy work or any leadership position might uplift your kind of engagement and leadership position. Also try to link leadership to also the community impact. So how your leadership has already created a sort of change within the community, and how this project can put your goals to the next level. So how you also want to keep that momentum. Try to make the case for your future trajectory. So how this role supports your long-term advocacy and policy goals. So in my case, for example, that was continuing doing project management in the global HIV response, but also engaging in research and community-led monitoring. So try to envision yourself in the future and see how this project actually fits to your long-term objectives. Try to make it personal and urgent, and show us why it's unique, as Charlotte was also mentioning before. before. And something that helps me often while writing these grant applications and helped me doing this specific grant was making multiple drafts before submitting in order for me to actually sharpen my language and understand my outputs and outcomes that I want to achieve, and writing in a language that's also relatable, concise, and clear for the reviewers. Try to use always person-centered language, action verbs, and keeping sentences concise. Also, leadership is proving that your story can actually light the way for others, and you have to try to find the words to actually communicate that. So when we go into the specific questions now, we'll see a couple of bad examples and good examples of how to actually answer to those questions. To the first one, here we can see what is your motivation to become an IAS Young Leader. And in this answer, we see something like, thanks for giving me the opportunity. So that's not actually a relevant information as an answer. We see lack of planning because today I came across the opportunity doesn't sound like someone who has actually spent time in planning these application, or maybe we see that it's too vague and not specific. So reviewers usually want clarity, want concrete goals, want authenticity, and also sometimes data that actually backs up your answers. When our answers are vague, our communities continue to remain unheard, and we want to actually prevent that through the way we're actually trying to communicate those answers. So now we'll pass to a better answer, so positive, kind of like a positive answer, like a good answer for this specific question. And we see, for example, here the applicant starts with a personal touch, a personal experience. So in my case, for example, I highlighted how my personal experiences actually informed my willingness to do a digital academy for youth in Italy across different regions to raise awareness about PrEP and sexual health. This applicant now is sharing, for example, how their experience as a young female sex worker has made them experience and understand how criminalization works. So adding a personal connection and draws from personal experience. We also have a type to a personal goal, so advocacy for the youth, equity in HIV services. There is a highlight of the community benefits, so not just the personal gain of the applicant. And the applicant in this case is also specific. So there's an issue that they faced, what they did to overcome them, and how they actually address it during their Youth Hub Seed Grant program. I would also generally recommend to highlight how the IAS platform will actually try to help you amplify the impact that you want to see and the change that you want to make in your community. Also understand the benefits of being a young leader. So you'll grow as a researcher, you will network, meet amazing people from all over the globe doing different cool things in the HIV response. You will train in monitoring and evaluation with experts. So try to show us the benefits of the program and why they will actually make you a more informed practitioner or community advocate or project manager in the HIV response. So let's go to the next slide where we see the second question. Describe your experience in HIV, including any of your work you believe is important for the field. Here again, we see a lot of, it's not specific enough. It's too vague. It lacks evidence. We have things such as active, collaborate, challenges. In this case, the applicant doesn't provide specific examples. What do they mean by active in peer support groups? Did they lead them or maybe just participate in them? How did they collaborate with organizations? What specific challenges actually they have faced while doing these works? So try to avoid this type of general language and be as specific as possible. For example, the term popular, the applicant doesn't really provide evidence or data to back up their assertion. So strong applications usually need evidence, the names of the organizations, measurable results, indicators, measurable impact. Usually general stories actually blur impact, but real change comes when we actually show the evidence of the lives that we've tried to transform. So in the next question, we have describe your experience in HIV, including any of your work, and we see how good examples actually show the clear need. There are specific activities that the participants do, identifying the gap and the problem. Also, you'll have those slides afterwards, and you can spend more time in understanding what are the do's and don'ts. For now, we're just trying to skim and focus on the most important things. So identifying the gap and the problem, so knowledge gap, stigma, access barriers, including the names of the organizations, showing the intervention they led, so peer counseling, workshops, and also the skills they gained. You should always, I believe, mention the impact and the scale up of the previous projects that you led, because that actually shows how you were already able to do maybe a smaller scale grant, and this grant will help you achieve your goals. But also remember, we put a lot of emphasis on the data, on the statistics and the epidemiological data maybe, but also remember the every statistic hides a phase. So try to find a way to show us how every project you led was actually about making those figures, those statistics, and those faces seen, heard, and protected. Because if we cannot show the impact, then how can we expect others, in this case the reviewers, to actually believe in our vision and in our project? So yes. So then we have the project plan questions and the youth engagement. So these are 5 questions. Remember here, again, to be as specific as possible. One of my advice would be try to bridge policy, science, and personal narrative always. So in my case, for example, I was sharing how I was sharing about the epidemiological data on HIV trends in the Italian context. I was also sharing quotes from lived experience that I learned through my peer counseling, and also trying to contextualize the issue and the urgency within broader political climates, both regionally, nationally, and internationally. So also touching on EU laws or international laws, etc. Also try not to repeat yourself in the answers because time is the words are limited, and sometimes we read applications that just keep repeating the same thing. So just try to focus your energy and words wisely across the answers. So now we'll only focus on the positive, on the do's of the questions, because we don't have enough time. However, we want to highlight how you should always present a clear snapshot that's concise and specific. Also trying to show the innovation. So what's new? Why digital peer participatory approaches maybe work best for the project that you're doing? Try to think outside of the box, maybe using performance arts we've seen in the past, dance, creative writing, yoga, anything that you think it's innovative, because in the end, the Youth Hub Seed Grant program is an innovation grant. So try to demonstrate that as in the best way possible. This doesn't mean that it has to be something completely new, so an invention, but it must be innovative in some way. Maybe a project like this has never been done before in your region, or maybe you're scaling up a project that's shown some results in the past, or maybe you're focusing on a target population that has been overlooked historically. Also try to stress systematic changes, not only helping individuals and the beneficiaries of your project, but also try to kind of like shift structures. So this grant is again implemented by young people for young people. So it's crucial that you show how this project aims to change systems that actually have been affected and continue to affect young people. And in this, you should also be able to explain a sense of urgency. So why youth need this project right now in the community or context that you're focusing on. We want to know why, if not funded, how this will actually negatively maybe affect these people. Try to use the data, epidemiological trends, personal stories, narratives to convince us. Show also maybe like laws, how criminalization intersects with the data that you are seeing. Ask yourself, why are youth being left behind now? Backing up with, again, data. So let's go at some of these questions and the answers. We'll, as I said before, we'll only focus on the good answers right now, just being mindful of time. So why is your project what is your project statement? Try to give a clear context, target a snapshot of like the timeline. Try to be to use a unique selling point. So in this case, for example, the applicant is showing the structural barriers, stigma, discrimination, NGO closures, fear of disclosure. So the whole political situation to convince us that's actually an urgent situation. There's evidence, there's survey findings. Also, you can use previous surveys that you've led yourself or with the organization you're working with, led in the past. We see 79% afraid of disclosure. So here the applicant is actually backing up claims with data, which gives more chances to be perceived as reliable and attentive by the reviewers. We also have a unique approach, so a chatbot, digital hub, so it's a safe, anonymous, modern way to approach the issue. The applicant also says it's the only one in Belarus that continues its activities. So here the applicant highlights their unique selling point, but it also shows the need and the urgency. It's also youth-centered. There's a specific target population. Try in general to also be realistic in this project statement and in your project objectives. If I can share something about my personal experience at the beginning when I was thinking and brainstorming about the project, about the Youth Hub grant, I wanted to reach over 100 people. However, with time, I actually realized that wouldn't be feasible for the time that I had and the funding that I had, but I could maybe pilot a smaller intervention with 15 to 20 young people. And that's what I ended up doing. And in that way, maybe the reviewers have seen how my project was actually more feasible, more contextualized, and I would provide more kind of like attention to detail during the process. And also I would pilot this project for a larger, maybe bigger project in the future. So try to be realistic. That's what I'm trying to say here. Be feasible, because sometimes reviewers perceive if it's just, up in the mountains and it's something that's not going to be feasible with the time and funding that you have. Also, for highlighting the urgency, in my case, I added a quote from a person that I peer counseled in the past with their consent. And I also highlighted the urgency of the project with some data. So again, try to be as specific as possible and showing us different angles that provide a holistic view of your project and your context. So to the next question, we have, what are your project objectives? Here we would advise you to use SMART objectives, so specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Always think who benefits. So in this case, we have a key output. We have a clear target, so young people living with HIV and affected by TB. So the target audience is actually defined. There's a time frame and location. There's a measurable, realistic, and kind of like health-related outcomes and indicators. So that's actually a good way to frame your project objectives. You can also think of other theories that can guide you how you answer your objectives. So there's the Plan, Do, Study, Act, PDSA cycles, theory of change, the SMART goals. So just try to use frameworks that give you an understanding of how to pitch your idea in a way that's very specific, measurable, time bound. Also in my application, I had highlighted the sustainability of the project. So showed how it aligned with UNAIDS goals, with the Sustainable Development Goals by centering prevention strategies on young people. Also try to link your objectives to also broader objectives present at the moment in your region or context. Think also of IAS Plus resources, how can they be available and applied to your local context, and also these project objectives are not just numbers. You should remember that these are commitments to keep, your communities alive, healthy, empowered. So again, try to be realistic and try to also put a personal touch that actually shows the need and the urgency. For the next question, what activities will you undertake? Here, the reviewers are interested in knowing that you actually thought through and are ready to implement the project if selected. This is one of the questions that I believe some people don't spend too much time on, as much as the budget section. And I think here it's your way to show that you're actually thought through every specific activity, or at least you have a good and clear understanding of the activities that you will carry out. So there's clear beneficiaries, there's a target, there's very specifics on the activities you'll perform. I remember, for example, I added awarding 15 to 20 certificates of completion for my young people. I added specific activities that just showed that what I was pitching was actually something that I thought through for a long time, and it wasn't just a last minute idea that I had. So try to show us step by step, youth by youth, that this plan basically builds a movement where young people can teach, protect, and uplift one another. This is from the young people and to young people. So show us how are these actions growing into a movement of change led by us and for us. So next, and I think last question for this project planning is how will the project measure success? Again, here we have SMART goals: specific, measurable, relevant, time bound. Always remember to have indicators. So here in this case, we have the percentage of HIV retention increase. We have the percentage of TB tracing done within 24 diagnosis, the number of youth engaged through campaigns and peer training. So we have indicators that are quantifiable. So try to always tie each indicator to a number or a percentage target. They are also relevant because they're directly linked to the project objectives, and also try to highlight and show accountability and evidence-based monitoring. I would also personally recommend you to think of both quantitative and qualitative indicators, so also including feedbacks, surveys, qualitative answers, maybe focus groups discussion to understand how the project was evolving, will be evolving. And try to be innovative, because again, this is an innovation grant. Try to be innovative in the way you approach every answer. So also thinking of monitoring and evaluation, I implemented the photo voice, which is a new kind of qualitative photo-related methodology. And in that case, I think I showed that I was thinking of innovation not only in the project objectives, but also in the way I was performing my activities. I was actually monitoring and evaluating the project, and I was actually thinking, and we'll now go into the budget. So lastly, the budget. I would say this. Here, you will be asked to upload a completed budget template with expenses listed in USD, and be advised that only applicants using the specific budget template will actually be considered. So try to use, actually not just use the budget template that you have, the IAS gives you to fill out, and because any submissions with alternative budget templates will automatically be rejected, and we don't want that. The main categories that you could see, look at the budget include training, so venue, material, trainers, communication, supply, staff and coordination. Try to think about like the feasibility, as I was also saying before. The budget matches the activities, that it's not inflated. Put the value for money, so high impact for cost, youth-led, scalable activities. Try to also highlight how, like, put a percentage or an amount also for your work as young leaders, because this should also be partially remunerated for the time and effort that you put in this grant. And just to conclude, I think I applied earlier to the Youth APSI grant program, and I actually wasn't accepted. I was accepted the second time I applied, and I think that was because I left the budget very last minute. I was, oh my God, this is too much, or I can do it easily, but I will do it at the end. And that was actually not correct. I think you should spend some time thinking about the budget, because from the beginning, because I'm sorry, because that will give you the time to understand which activities you will do and which impact you will have. So this budget is more than numbers. It's an investment in youth leadership, resilience, healthier futures. So yes, I know we have all been there. Budgets might look technical, but also think that behind these costs, there's a life impacted, maybe breaking stigma, there's like healthier futures. So overall, I would say make multiple drafts about the overall application and the budget. I usually have like 2 to 3 drafts per application. And I want to remind you that we stood, I can speak also Charlotte, where you are just 1 year ago. So I know the pressure, we know the pressure, we know the doubts, we know the late nights. And I would also want to let you know that you're not alone. Just give your best, break it down step by step, and don't stop moving forward. Funding applications sometimes are overwhelming. We can't just deny that, especially in the current political and economic climate that we're living. So take a deep breath, give it your best, and remember that every step you're taking is building the change that you're actually trying to create and want to see in your communities. So good luck with your applications, and remember that your ideas matter, your voices matter, and the change starts with you. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Marco and Charlotte, for these amazing presentations. I am going to lead us through the last 2 criteria that we're looking at. So one is project sustainability. And the questions that you'll be answering for that is, how will your project ensure continued impact after the grant period? And does your project leverage partnerships with and/or funds from other organizations? So what we look for here is that you have thought about what happens after the grant period. We don't want you to implement a project that is great while it lasts, but then everybody forgets about it right away. The communities are left high and dry, and just nothing changes from it. We want you to think about the sustainability and create a strategy of like, okay, how will this create lasting change? So really have a think about that. And here we have just a positive example for this case, where we can see the applicant who's really thought about leveraging collaborations. They identified already specific partners that they want to work with, and how they see their project having a lasting impact. And then lastly, we talk about the capacity of the host organization, because like Charlotte said earlier, you can't do it alone. You need a strong local backing. The IAS also can't be physically there and help you with the day-to-day. So you really need to ensure that you have a host organization that's happy to support you and know what they're getting themselves into. So here, we want you to really look at the letter of recommendation with your host organization, maybe with your mentor, and see that you really communicate why this organization is supporting you and the project. Why is it important? How does it fit into their strategy? And really bring examples of how you will be supported as a young leader. Maybe they have already identified several people on the team who can help you with different things. Maybe they have other organizations that they work with. Maybe they have a local supplier that they always work with. Maybe they plan on checking in with you every 2 weeks. So just there has to be some specificity so that we know that they know what it means to be a host organization. And of course, the organization needs to show a strong capacity to deliver so that they have some experience in project management, or they have experience working with you and like you have led successful projects together. So also something on the organization. And now looking at this recommendation letter, we can see there is no information on what the organization is or what they do. Remember, we don't know every organization in the world. We need it can just be a quick paragraph of like, what is this organization? What do they do? Then we have some very generic language on the support that we really need some specifics here. It's very vague on what they're supporting. It seems like they don't know what your project is. So that's a red flag. And then also there's some spelling mistakes. So also it seems like they're not really invested in that. Whereas when we look at this recommendation letter, we see exactly what the organization does and how it fits into the Youth Hub Seed Grant program and the project that is proposed. There's already a specific mentor identified who will do X, Y, Z. We have like specific tasks like through the supervision, troubleshooting, will be expected to submit some reports. And we also, what we really like is the host organization has shown how they also will support the young leader in their growth. Because remember, this grant is not just about the project, it is also about your professional development and the motivation you have. And we're really looking forward to all of your amazing applications, and good luck. And of course, thank you so much, Marco and Sarah.
Thank you so much, and good luck with your applications. Nail it, and we'll be happy to review some of them. So thank you so much, all of them.
Bye, everyone.